Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another daily Marvel Snap video. Today we're going to be exploring the Pool 1 archetype of Odin. And Odin on reveal is a potentially really strong one. It gains more power as you get into deeper pools and you have access to other deeper pool cards, but it can absolutely hold its own in Pool 1. And so this list operates on being able to trigger your on reveal abilities early and then trigger them once again with Odin as you get later into the game. Our on reveal cards, not necessarily the ones that will be re-triggered with Odin, but are primarily going to buff up our cards and be able to give us a better power advantage versus the opponent is our Rocket, our Wolfsbane, our Jessica Jones, our White Tiger, which is going to be great to be hit with an Odin, a Gamora, which is a huge 12 power play. If you can hit the on reveal ability when you play her the first time, if you can re-trigger it again with Odin, that lane is going to be almost impossible for them to beat. And then of course Odin, which will re-trigger your on reveal abilities. Now, aside from those, we've teched in a lot of low cost cards. The reason for that is our strong on reveal abilities are really high cost. So we have a lot of 5 power, 4 power cards in this list, and we need something to hold down either another lane or push power early enough that we can be competitive to take that 5th and 6th turn to drop a strong on reveal and then drop an Odin as well. And so to do that, just like almost every other Pool 1 list that you're going to see, this is going to run Angela. Angela is going to be great at being able to be dropped on the board. We can then drop additional cards like our Nightcrawler, our Korg, our Ant-Man into that lane as a way to buff that one up, push that power level up and over what we need to win that lane, and dropping these other ones will add a little bit of disruption onto the board as well, so that we can afford to drop our more powerful cards later on by keeping a tempo early game so that we can potentially have either the advantage so that we flip first, or that we're just able to hold it down enough that whenever we drop our own reveals, we can push enough power elsewhere with them to lock it down. But let's go ahead and jump over into a couple of games, and I'll show you how it's ran. All right, so first up we have Snap, and we get the 4 highest cost cards from our deck in our opening hand. Luckily, we are going to shuffle our cards back into our deck after the 3rd turn with the Atilan location. But oh my gosh, is this draw horrific. If you look at our deck just above us over here, this is the 5 highest cost cards that we could possibly draw into. We could not draw into a higher curve, and we stacked this deck specifically with a lower cost curve. That way we could always have something to play onto the board. Oh my god, oh my gosh. This is not great. So with this deck and with Pool 1 decks and it being so either combo specific or so very important to have the lead early, a lot of times we're going to retreat more often than you might realize. So if you do not have a distinct advantage, at that point, I usually tuck tail and run. In Pool 1, when you're climbing, the key to climbing consistently is not overcommitting. So very much like poker, you don't want to push all of your chips into one hand. If it's a great hand, yeah, absolutely double down on it. But if not, then there's no risk in us losing more than, there's no point in us risking more than 1 cube, knowing that we had such a horrible start. That is like a, I don't know the percentage chance to draw into the 5 highest cost cards out of our 12, but it's a very low percentage chance that is how it happens and that is how it plays out. And so I think we're going to play our Mr. Sinister and our Rocket Raccoon. No, they're going to play either into the Atlantis or a Atilan. Let's play them over here to the left. Next turn we can do an Odin, but that's still pretty lackluster. We'll see. So they do cap out Kunlun. We're not going to have the reach to beat them there, really, no matter what we drop or what we draw into. We do have our Odin, but we don't have anything great to re-trigger it. The only like upside that we have, I guess they could have a Chavez here, right? If they have a Chavez that comes into Atlantis that pushes 14 power here. Otherwise, I think we outpower them with our Gamora in Westview. I didn't think we were going to risk this one, but I think we stay into it. Looking at kind of what they have, it's like an on reveal style deck, right? They might run an Odin to re-trigger the Elektra, but that's going to be an 8 power. and then it's going to be a 12 power swing. Ours is going to be a 12 power swing as well, so we would still tie. We would actually lose the tiebreaker. Let's go ahead and lock it in. Let's see what they're playing. Ooh, so they do split their cards. Okay, Spider-Woman's not great for us. We have Gamora, so that should allow us to oh my gosh, that should allow us to push our power up over the edge. We are going to have more than the 15 because Gamora is such a strong play if it hits. And then our Jessica Jones into Atlantis was a high enough power push that it was able to hold it down. And this might be a bot match, but up until that last turn, I was in the mindset that we were fully committed to retreating. Unless we top decked into Gamora. Had we not drawn into Gamora, there was no way that we were going to be able to push enough power to win any of the lanes. And so let's go ahead and jump over into the next game. All right, next up we have Tony Redgrave, and we have something pretty interesting. The Nexus is such a polarizing location that if we can hit Gamora, if we draw into Odin, that should be enough to allow us to swing the entire game in our favor. It is such a strong combo piece that, I mean, maybe even just Gamora would be enough to do that. I'm going to go ahead and play Angela just because she's going to be a pretty decent power push over the course of the game. It's going to end up being around 7 power, which is not bad for something that we can drop in there on turn 2. We're going to lean in with the Nightcrawler. That will buff her up. We can then move it out later. We're feeling pretty confident. We know that we have a good turn with Gamora. We might draw into Enchantress, so if it turns out they're running like a Zoo style deck, we can oftentimes cancel out their big power push or their big bonus or buff. And so we're feeling pretty decent about kind of our placing. So especially with the Angela into Nightcrawler, it's a pretty strong play. We can partner that with having Gamora, which is an insanely strong turn 5, and knowing that the Nexus is such a pivotal location, the odds of the opponent playing into that location on 5 is very, very big. And so we should have a 12 power Gamora, I think, without really much of an issue. So here we're going to go ahead and I think we play Jessica Jones. We're going to spread our power between these two just in case we lose this one just barely, but they invest all of their resources here. And so let's go ahead and push the Jessica Jones. Okay, so they do have a Khazar, and we have our Odin. I think that's game. So now we do Gamora. We can re-trigger that with Odin. I think even if they flood this one with all kinds of strong cards, I don't think they win it. They could use a Scarlet Witch. If they're running a Scarlet Witch, that's pretty sneaky. It's pretty sneaky that it should probably beat us at that point. We do draw into our Enchantress just a turn too late. Otherwise, we could Enchantress, we could take out their bonus here. But honestly, I think the Odin into Gamora play is going to be stronger. And so they're probably going to flood some lower cost cards here. Maybe even a strong guy, but having 6 cards in hand, I don't think they can get rid of all of the cards that they have. They're going to have to flood a bunch of low cost cards here. I think we can outpower it with an Odin and Gamora. We already snapped. We already doubled down. We're going to go ahead and stick it out. I think we have a really good shot to win this. Them staying in, it seems a little bit like maybe hubris. Maybe I don't know. They're probably doing the math now, or they should be doing the math of, since we have an on reveal style deck, or it looks like we have most likely an on reveal style deck, they should anticipate the Odin into Gamora. It's going to be a big power push. So we do trigger the Gamora very easily on that final turn. Okay, so they have Rocket, which triggers. And let's see if they're able to push enough power quickly enough. So Elektra does kill our Nightcrawler. Unfortunately, we didn't have a chance to pull it out, but I think that's okay. The Wolfsbane comes in. I don't think that is enough to push them over 27. That is insanely close. It came down to 2-point swing. To a 2-point swing, that was a lot closer than I thought it would. Granted, they had a really strong, we knew they had a Zoo style deck. They were going to be able to push a lot of power. I was not anticipating the Wolfsbane. The Wolfsbane was a good touch at the very end to almost get them up to that point, but we were able to hold it down. Let's go ahead and jump into the next one. All right, next up we have Hanzerbeek. First location is Asgard. We don't have a strong early game, at least in our starting hand. What we do have is a Mr. Sinister to push for the Raft location. We have an Ant-Man. So if we draw into like an Angela or a Korg or something really low to the ground, we can actually cap out the raft location next turn to get the free 6-cost card. Maybe it's worth it, maybe it's not, but I think capping it out, even if we end up losing the raft location, I think it's worth it just for the fact that we can potentially stop them from getting a 6-cost card as well. Because it could be that impactful. Ooh, and so they only play 1 card. We get a free 6-cost card, which is a Giganto. Giganto is a pool 3 card. It can only be played in the left lane, and so we're actually going to, I think, hold it for a little while. I don't think we're going to push it out onto the board. We do have our Gamora, we have our Odin, so Wakandan Embassy should be a lane that's going to be pretty easy to win. So I think we just play our Jessica Jones. We play this slow. We don't want them to know that we have a massive free 14 power to push on the board that they don't have access to. We want to play it slow. We don't want to snap right away because that's probably going to scare them off. We want to slow play it. If we can get them to maybe forget about the free 6-cost card, then we can position ourselves in a much better spot to be able to win. So we can do something like this potentially. I'm not sure where they're going to be playing their power. And actually, it looks like they're probably running a Spectrum on reveal deck. So they're going to be able to push this one up by 2, these 2 up by 2. I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe an Iron Man here, and then they're just going to run a Hail Mary and hope that they can win with Namor. And so we're gonna kind of split our power. We're not going to do the traditional Gamora line. I think we're going to get more overall power doing the Angela play line with the White Tiger, with the Wolfsbane trigger at the end. So it's nowhere near 14. Ooh, so a claw. Interesting. Okay, and so now if they do if they do a Spectrum here, they obviously win this lane. We win this lane every single time. What we can do is we could either do an Enchantress here. That's going to take away 5 power, but they're going to get 2 of it in return, so that brings them down to 11. We win the Namor lane. If they end up dropping a Spectrum, is that more or less beneficial than just leaning into an Odin play? Like, I don't think there's any way they beat an extra 14 power in Asgard. I don't think they drop anything big here. I think we're just going to go with the Odin play. It does feel nice to potentially do an Enchantress on them, but we're okay. I think we've spent enough time. Let's go ahead and snap. Maybe we have convinced them to stay in. Maybe they've forgotten about the card we got from the raft, or they just don't think it's impactful because we haven't, ran it yet. We didn't snap until the very end. Maybe we've kind of lulled them into a false sense of security. And then there comes down the Spectrum. That is a big power push, but Giganto is going to match it toe for toe. We're going to re-trigger our Wolfsbane in the far right lane, and they're not going to be able to keep up with that much power. And so that is one of the reasons that we tech this deck into a low curve, so that we can potentially either swing TVA games or raft games that otherwise we would have to retreat and just have no shot at winning. But with that win, we are going to go ahead and end this video here. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to leave it a like and a comment down below. As always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.